Okay, and I'm fairly sure that we are off. Hello, welcome to episode 54 of Shelf Analysis, but a shelf analysis unlike any of the previous 53 insofar as it's the middle of the afternoon. I know I've stuck on all the lights in here. If I was to look at there, I can still technically see sunlight. We're doing this one in the middle of the day, partially because of the nature of what we're talking about, partially because we kind of wanted to get our target audience involved in this as well today. If it's your first time watching, welcome along. You can catch all of the previous Shelf Analysis episodes on the YouTube channel. Just look up Shelf Analysis. Most of them are all archived on RTE Culture as well. This one today is about the run-up to Christmas. One of those questions that I get asked most often in the book club is, do you know the sort of book a blah kid of blah age might be interested in? Insert any age from 2 to 18. We always try our best. There are many people in the book club who are so good at this kind of thing. But the thought occurred to me that particularly in the run-up to Christmas, when many people are trying to figure out the books they are going to buy for their own kids or for kids that are in their lives, their family, that we might benefit from a little expert advice. I couldn't find expert advice, so I ended up with the three people I'm about to bring on for you here as well. Hey, it's going to be one of those afternoons. It really is. Before I do that, just briefly, I want to mention this to you, and we've been doing this across all of them over the last few weeks as well. We run a Christmas appeal every year. The appeal this year is fundraising for the DSPCA, for the Samaritans, and for the Peter McVerry Trust. Three very broad churches indeed. So far, if I click at the top right-hand corner, we have raised €8,078 in about the last 10 days or so, which is pretty good. Over the last 2 years, fundraising as part of the Ricochet Book Club Christmas Appeal, we've raised about €85,000 or so in year one and year two. The appeal runs until 31st of December, New Year's Eve at midnight. If you get the chance, and if you have the possibility to do so, if you'd like to throw the cost of a book into our appeal, it's a really simple one. You can find it in the Ricochet Book Club. Either look at there or go and find my social media feeds. The link is there all the time at Ricochet on Twitter is primarily where you'll find me. You'll find it on my Instagram as well, the Ricochet on Instagram, primarily because somebody else already had Ricochet. We're done. Let's get cracking because I have a lot of books that I want to talk to you about and a lot of stuff that I want to recommend. I'm going to press 3 buttons and hopefully bring on all. This is, by the way, the first time I've ever had more than one guest on Shelf Analysis, and I'm not very good at this kind of thing. So can I welcome, if I press button 1 and button 2 and button 3, I think this goes all at once. So I think firstly, wait, 3, 2, 1, all together. Look at this. Woohoo! Fantastic. In the corner this way in Brady Bunch style is Sarah Webb. Hello, Sarah. How are you? Lorraine Levis down in the corner here as well. And directly below me in Celebrity Square number 3 is David O'Callaghan from Eason's. How are you guys doing?
Good afternoon.
Good, thank you. Good.
It's still fairly sunny outside. It's fantastic.
I know. What I like about this most is that obviously Sarah has just gone totally full out and shamed all of us by being the most Christmassy person that I've seen so far anywhere. And Dave is just sitting in the middle of a forbidden planet somewhere, located somewhere in the UK. I'm not sure where. And other than that, and Lorraine, you and I just seem like we're relatively normal human beings who just, are getting on with our
we have jobs. Books. It's fine.
Stuff. I'm going to crack into this as quickly as I can, primarily because I've no idea, firstly, whether 5 people are going to watch this or 500 people are going to watch this because it's the middle of the day. If you're watching back on this later on as well, absolutely, please check out what we're going to do over the course of about the next 30 minutes or so. I liked the idea of us trying to get through age groups, starting younger and then working all of our way up. So, maybe if you've got kids that are in a much younger age group, the first bit is going to be for you. And then maybe somewhere in the middle, it'll be the second age group. And as we get towards the end, we'll do YA. We haven't planned any of this. We have not rehearsed any of this. This is going to be shambolic at the best of times, particularly given the 4 of us. So look, I'm going to start. Sarah, you're next to me in the box. I'm going to start with you with stuff that is for maybe the youngest of readers and what it is you are going to suggest for us.
Absolutely. I have picked 2 Irish books, but I would just like to say that although this is for we're saying 0 to 5, these books could be enjoyed by much older children because children are very visually literate and they love seeing different types of art styles and different stories. So the first one I'm going to kick off with is Have You Seen the Dublin Vampire by Una Woods. And this is published by the O'Brien Press. And it is a gorgeous story about a little vampire who goes through Dublin hiding away. And there's a lot of nods to Bram Stoker's Dracula. The illustrations are extraordinary. Una is a young illustrator. This is her first authored illustrator book, and it's absolutely terrific. And there's lots of tiny little details to see along the way. So highly recommended for, I'd say, kind of about 2 to about 7, in fact, for that one.
Fantastic.
And the second one is from another Irish author illustrator, but this is a master, and I think everyone knows Mr. Oliver Jeffers. Yay! So this is his latest, called What We'll Build, and this is an extraordinary, gentle, compelling story. It's really, really sweet, about a father and his daughter, and he is talking about what he will build and what they will build together. And it's really about building a better life, building a better planet. The illustrations are really, really gorgeous. I mean, Oliver is exceptional. He is world class, and we were so lucky to have him in the picture book world. Highly, highly recommended. And they are my 2 for the very youngest age group. But I'm just going to squeeze in a Christmas
I knew this would
choice.
start. Yeah, I
Now
knew this was
it
going to begin. Yeah.
Very, very quickly, The 12 Days of Christmas by Alex T. Smith, one of the funniest men in books. He did the Claude books, and it's his take on the 12 Days of Christmas. So this is 6 geese a laying, but when it goes further on, it gets to things like 10 rhinos racing, which, as we all know, is classic.
And makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Makes perfect sense, but just squeeze in a little Christmas one there. So there's 3 for the younger age group.
My first 2 thoughts immediately are you've done this before, Sarah. And secondly, that obviously, if anybody does have kids of those age, go through Oliver Jeffers' back catalogue. That's just a great place to start. Work your way back through Oliver's stuff. Pick anything at random. Doesn't really matter what it is. Now, you can throw in comments as well, by the way. I meant to say below here.
Yeah.
I'm working on my own today, but look, throw in comments either if you're watching on YouTube or you're watching in the Ricochet Book Club, and I'll see what we can do for you as well. Lorraine, you're down below. I'm going to work in a kind of that direction. What have you got for our younger readers?
Okay, so in the same way Sarah was saying that for the very smallies, it can also travel up in age group. I really like the idea of traveling down. So I love the idea of prenatal books. It's just something that I find adorable and fascinating. So I love recommending books that are the perfect gift for soon-to-be parents, just about parents, and parents for a while and they're very tired. So the first one I'm going to recommend is perfect for that pre-baby, post-baby stage. So this is Will You Be My Friend? It's by Sam McBratney and illustrated by Anita Jerem. You will know the illustration style from Guess How Much I Love You, which is one of the books that is on the ever-growing list of books that make me cry on a bad day, just because it gets you right in the feels. So this is no exception. As some people may know, Sam unfortunately passed away very recently, and it was like this beautiful gift that he left, or that he just released a new book in this series for the first time in many years. So basically the idea is it's your nut brown hair that you'll know from Guess How Much I Love You, who goes out and meets a new little friend, and it's just the sweetest. It's one of those books that, and I feel horrible for saying it, you could like cut out the pictures and frame them. They're all just so beautiful. I know, look at that, look, Rick.
Even, but I get where you're coming from. Yeah.
It just means you have to buy 2 of everything. It's fine. So they're just beautiful, gorgeous watercolor. Then my second one, and who is authored and illustrated by a very good friend of the Irish children's book world. It's Peter Donnelly, and it's The Dead Blue. Again, you might know his previous work with the President's Book, the picture book, The President's Glasses, The President's Cat, and The President's Surprise, which are just fantastic. So this is another brilliant one by him. The idea is that it's about a very, very grey dead zookeeper in the Natural History Museum in Dublin who hates live animals, and he encounters a little mouse who just wants to be friends. So it's very lovely. Gil have done a brilliant job on the presentation of this one, so it's a brilliant gift for basically anyone, and it's very bright and fantastic and so those are my 2 little ones.
Already we've got a comment in. Thank you, David, who says, who did you say, Rick? Oliver who? Oliver Jeffers is his name, but scroll back again. You'll be able to watch. If you're just popping in and you've just made it in through the door and you've just picked up the kids from school, don't worry. You will be able to watch the whole video back a little bit later on. Somebody else says, what we'll build looks beautiful. It does, very, very much so. David, are you going to weigh in here? Or are you keeping your powder dry for later on? Or what's happening?
Well, I shouldn't weigh in because I've no props and then you'll just give out to me for not having, but I love it so much. I have to give it away to my family member because they want it. So it's a book, While We Can't Hug, by Owen McLaughlin and Polly Dunbar. And it's basically a beautiful thing. And it's basically the story of hedgehog and tortoise who can't hug. So for the times we're in, it's this whole thing of kids. Well, you can't hug, you can wave, you can smile at each other, you can dance. So it's like a normal adult life, really. And it's an absolute thing of beauty. Unfortunately, my only copy, I'm not going to say stolen by a family member, but yeah. So that's how in demand it is. But it's a beautiful thing. It's called While We Can't.
It's requisitioned by a family member. It's a good all-purpose one. Yeah. And that's called Why We Can't Hug.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Are we going to move on then to slightly older kids? Are we going to go for the next one? Okay, look, Sarah, you're in, this box here. So if you want to go next for, what's our next category?
So the next category is kind of 5 to 8. But as we always say, that could be down to 4, that could be up to 9, 10, 11. So it's just a general, when children start reading or when they're looking for something a little bit longer. So the first one I've chosen is one of my great heroes in life, the wonderful Mary Robinson. And this book is by father and daughter team, John and Fatty Burke. You might know them because they did the Irelandopedia and the Historiopedia books. Fatty has her real name's Kathy, has a very distinctive style. It's very modern, fantastic illustrations, very, very bright, quite blocky. But this book is brilliant. It gives you a real insight into Mary's character, into what she achieved and her lasting legacy in Ireland. I was just 18 the first time I voted in 1990, and the first time I ever voted was for the presidential election for Mary Robinson. So it meant a lot to me to see a woman on the ballot sheet, and it meant a huge amount to me that she won. And she's always been one of my huge heroes. So I'll be delighted to share this with my little nieces who are 3 and 5. So that is Mary Robinson by John and Fatty Burke, and published by Gill Books, who are doing a stellar job, as Lorraine said, with picture books at the moment. Okay. And then the second one for this age group is one that would make an amazing read aloud. If they like the Rabbit and Bear books by Julian Gough or Charlotte's Web by E.B. White, this is about friendship, but it's about friendship difficulties and how it isn't always easy to make or keep friends. At the beginning, Badger has a lovely house that he has been allowed live in by his aunt, and Skunk arrives. He is not happy. He is really, really not happy. He said,
as he wouldn't be, obviously. A skunk turns up, you're not going to be overly happy.
The first time Badger saw Skunk, he thought puny and shut the front door. But they learn to get on together. It's by Amy Timberlake, but the illustrations are by the amazing John Classen. I'm going to find you one here. John Classen is quite famous for his picture books. He is brilliant. It is outstanding. I so enjoyed reading this, both as someone, I read like a child sometimes. I read with a child's eye, but I also enjoyed the language so much. It's beautifully written, and I would love to have a 7 or 8-year-old in my house that I could read this to every night. It's outstanding. One of my books of the year. Skunk and Badger by Amy Timberlake, pictures by John Classen.
Fantastic. Okay, Lorraine, you're next. What have you got?
Okay, so for an Irish choice for this age group, and again, it's a book that's for, that independent, growing in confidence reader, but actually for absolutely everybody ever. This is Break the Mold by Sinead Burke. The idea of it is it's an accessible, illustrated book about basically loving yourself in how different and amazing you are, sort of examining your life and the life of those around you and figuring out how you can support them, even though their lives might be very different from your own, and accepting people for how they are and who they are. And it's just fabulous. It's one of those ones you can dip in and out of, and I know I have been, and it's a really nice, almost mindfulness book that just you read a bit of it and then take a pause and think about it. It's a brilliant one if you want a book to interact with kids with, if you will. So if you want to read a bit of it, they read a bit of it, and then you discuss it. And so it's a really, really good conversation starter. And that is from Renan Rook, and it is Break the Mold by Sinead Burke. Oh, and it's illustrated by Natalie Byrne. Always very important to.
I should probably mention as well, I don't think I've said this as of yet, but Sinead is going to be one of our guests on Shelf Analysis in about 2 weeks' time. I think it's 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I'll let you know. I'll keep you up to date. But Sinead is coming on Shelf Analysis in a couple of weeks. Okay, what else?
Very cool. Please mention to her that I said her book, because that would be very, cool.
I will pass the love along. That's fine.
So then the other one I picked is Amelia Fang, and this one is the Naughty Catacorns, which are cats and unicorns, which are two of the most topical and brilliant things. Basically, you throw a unicorn on anything these days and it sells. I'm sure Dave will attest to this. Half of Eason is currently just unicorns, I think, at this point. So the reason I picked this one is because it really well represents a sort of category of books for the early independent and confidence building child, because it looks the thickness of a book that an older child or even mum or dad would be reading, but it is just full of these brilliant illustrations. And as Sarah said earlier, visual learning and visual literacy is so important, and kids are so good at it that it's something that needs to be nurtured just as much as your visual or your reading literacy, as it were. So the idea of this is that it's about Amelia Fang, who is a little vampire who gets up to lots and lots of mischief. And this book just shows you're allowed love pink and pink sprayed edges, but you can also be a little bit dark and a little bit grumpy, and it's all great.
Bit like myself, Lorraine.
Dark
pink,
bit
pink, bit grumpy.
That's pink, dark, and grumpy. That could be said about many of us. That's fine. Dave, before we get to you, one of our commenters says, Dave, the resident 8-year-old is so impressed by your massive Totoro that she has made you honorary Dav Pilkley. It is. Can we talk about your backdrop just for a minute before we go any further? Because it's the kind of backdrop I would like to have in my house, but I'm not allowed.
It's actually just wallpaper.
That's a Totoro kind of there. And then what else have you got behind you there?
Where am I going? So Totoro, Serenity is with Totoro, the ship. Serenity. Ash from Evil Dead, obviously, over here.
Very nice.
Scary puppet.
Empire Strikes Back French poster, and an alien face hugger, and the usual stuff you'd have in a city.
Not an English poster. It has to be French.
Oh, and Princess Bride.
What I love is the conjunction of the alien facehugger and Totoro. It literally just right there, right beside each other, because that's how life works.
What can you do?
Tell me, where are you going with this? Do you have something for this age group?
I do. I have props. I'm back in the prop world. So just like Amelia Fang, I am obsessed with Isadora Moon. I think she's half fairy, half vampire. Absolutely, glitter and glows. All sparkles throughout. As I said, the dark and the emo. So if you have a young 5-year-old as My Chemical Romance fan, you never know. There's a future ahead. But these are absolutely fantastic. And like before in this category, like Judy Moody would have been my favorite kind of 5 to 8-year-old for girls, especially. We're reading them, devouring them. So Isadora is actually she's only about 2 years in the business, I suppose. But absolutely, people have lost their mind because again, as Lorraine attests to, it's the pink and the black. It's okay to be pink, but you can be grumpy too, and it's just that whole thing. So Isadora Moon, this is the new one. It's a little hardback, goes to a wedding, and absolutely fantastic. There's a whole series of them, and from small to slightly ridiculous. I see Lorraine
Fantastic book
over there. This could go from anywhere aged 6 to 40. It's just basically Ireland, as anybody who works in the book trade knows, anything with farm in the title, you order more of. Because we just exponentially, as a nation, love farm books. There will be a child on the toy show, I'm sure, on a tractor, and he's going to lose, or she will lose their mind this Friday, because this book is basically a huge illustrated, very in the style of Irelandpedia and the science book, the weather book. Too big, I can't even carry it anymore. Illustrated by Sally Caldwell and Darren McCullough. So just amazing facts about Irish farms, and like there are over 2 million pigs in the country. Did you know that? And only 10%. What is it? 10% of our milk produced in Ireland is consumed here. The other 90% goes. God knows.
We make good milk.
But huge, really now, that in a sock. Good luck with you. But absolutely brilliant. These type of books, education by stealth. So highly recommended. I'll put it down now because I'm losing the feelings in my arms.
I thought for a moment we were going to lose you. I thought you were actually going to injure yourself by falling backwards with the book like that. That was going to be mid-show. It would have made for something.
Yeah, well, it's a brilliant book.
There are loads of comments coming in. My 8 and 11-year-old are glued to this. My 8-year-old and 11-year-old are also glued to this. Hello to all 8 and 11-year-olds everywhere.
We're parents, and they're both in the same room.
Hello to parents. How are you? Glad we're part of your day today. The Great Irish Farm book is fantastic. Highly recommended. Tom Percival has a great range of books for this age group too. Misha Makes Friends, Ruby's Worry, and more. My daughter loves them as well. That came in on comment. You can drop them either on Facebook here or on YouTube, wherever you're watching. Okay, we're moving one step up a little bit. Where are we now, Sarah?
Oh, well, this is a fabulous age. This is the age where the really magical books like Harry Potter, Nevermore, all fit into Derek Landy's books. This is kind of what we call middle grade, which is basically kind of 8 up to about 12. It's the biggest part of any library or bookshop, and there are some terrific books out for that age group this year. One of my standout books of the year, but I must say Judy is also a very good friend of mine, so I was absolutely thrilled when this book was so good. This is Lily Steps Up, and I think it's Judy's best book yet. It is so warm. I know Lorraine and I have both agreed that this is like a hug, this book. It is about two friends, Lily and Nellie. They're maids in the big house in Lissadell, and it is set in 1914. And Countess Markovitz, her daughter, becomes also friends with Lily. And it is about Lily trying to help Nellie, who has a workhouse background, and she's trying to help Nellie find her sisters. It doesn't pull its punches. It's quite sad in places, but my goodness, it is so sweet. And I read it in one very, very late night sitting. I stayed up almost all night reading it. I loved it. I couldn't recommend it highly enough to boys or girls. You could give it to them quite young, like good readers of 8 or 9 would be well able for it. It's a really, really, really sweet book. That is Lily Steps Up by Judy Curtin. The other one is very different. This is fantasy. And this is a Dutch writer called Annette Schlapp, S-C-H-A-A-P, Schlapp. I have no idea how to pronounce it, but someone out there will do. And it is called Lampie. And it is about a young girl called Lampie who helps her father light the old-fashioned lighthouse every evening with a match. But she runs out of matches and the light does not get lit, and a ship crashes into the rocks, and Lampie is punished by being sent to work as a maid in a very, very Gothic old house. There are echoes of a secret garden. There are echoes of all kinds of strange Selkie stories. It is absolutely wonderful. It's the kind of book that a really thoughtful reader of about 9, 10, 11 will love. Annette has done the illustrations as well. Again, this is one I just adored, and it is definitely one of my books of the year. There's a circus in it. There's all kinds of things in it. It's not that well known. It's published by Pushkin, who are a smallish UK publisher who do a lot of translated books. I absolutely loved it. So highly, highly recommended. Lampie.
Okay, fantastic. Lorraine, where are we going next?
Hello. Next, we are staying in Ireland with. So you didn't mention the fact that I work for this publisher, but it doesn't matter. So ignore.
You've got it out there. You've mentioned it now. That's fine.
Yeah.
No,
well, I had to admit that Judy was a good friend. So.
Yeah, exactly. It's like all the connections. So this is The Miracle on Ebenezer Street by Catherine Doyle. And you might know Catherine Doyle from her amazing Storekeeper's Island series. I think there are 3 of those. Or I think the last one's coming out. Isn't that it? Yeah, thanks, Dave. And the series, she just writes magic so fantastically. So Puffin got her on board to do a modern retelling of A Christmas Carol. And this was the product. This is A Miracle on Ebenezer Street. Basically, it's about a boy whose dad a boy who lost his mum, and his dad cancelled Christmas. And so for 3 years, they haven't had any Christmas, but his very wise and brilliant Irish granny keeps trying to bring it back in. And then one night, an old portrait comes to life, and they have to tackle Christmas with past, present, and future. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. It's an amazing one for a chapter a night before sleep, coming up to Christmas, and it's just beautiful. I can't say any more amazing things about it. Then the other one is a debut author and the start of a new series, which is just amazing. So this is The Strange Worlds Travel Agency by L.D. Lipinski. And the idea behind this one, it's got a fantastic cover. And the idea is that a girl has moved to a new town and she goes exploring and she finds a dilapidated travel agency full of suitcases. And she finds that when she opens the suitcase, she can travel to other worlds through them. And it turns out that there are these group of people that are have the magical ability to travel between worlds and protect and document these new worlds by going through the suitcases. It's fantastic. Like, it's amazing. It's real sort of Harry Potter through Diagon Alley kind of a book. Any fan of any sort of fantasy series is on to an amazing one with this one.
Okay, fantastic. David, sir, what have you got?
I'm just getting misty-eyed thinking of suitcases. Stop it, I'm welling up here. Remember suitcases?
Oh,
Sorry.
Remember when we used to get into those, metal tube things, and we used to go to other places that weren't here? Remember that?
remember looking at carousels for suitcases that never arrived.
Yeah, I got up for that.
To be there now. Oh, to be stuck for 3 hours there now. Okay, so I'm going down the gifts kind of non-fiction route for this age group, because I suppose in the last, like, when you think of gift books, like around Christmas, the perennial bestsellers are, Guinness and Ripley's. But however, in the last 4 or 5 years, this area has just become brilliant. So there's one way to look. These are kind of books that a parent can buy for a kid that the kid may never pick up themselves, about subjects that they might like. Or B, it's a subject the kid does like. So the first one is Kay's Anatomy by Adam Kay. He of This Is Going to Hurt the Adult book. This is, if I had this when I was a kid, I'll tell you, I'd know a lot more than I do now. Basically, it's illustrated throughout, and it's everything from, muscles and bones and lungs. Yes, the birds and the bees are in there, so just be warned, the awkward questions will happen. But it is also, in classic, this type of book, grotesque and astonishing, and like, you're like, ew, like, because when you do think about it, it's just a package, really. But this, that's what I learned from this book. But absolutely brilliant. Adam Kay's Anatomy, and I would highly, like, he's a humongous adult bestseller, and for him to do this with all these brilliant things, so absolutely fantastic. So
I would wonder as well, has he been sitting on that title his whole life since he became a doctor?
Brilliant, isn't it?
Perfect.
He only published the grown-up books to get to this.
Yeah.
So that is, and then the other one is another actual adult. You will know short history of nearly everything from Bill Bryson. Well, this is a really short history, because this is a beautiful gift book, probably for, again, 9+. And it's astonishing. Like, again, it's education by stealth. You give it to the child. The child's like, "What are you giving me?" This is not, like, I want to point out, 2 years ago, there was a book called The Irish Weather Book, and you'd be literally going, if I got a book about weather for Christmas, I'm telling you now, there'll be trouble. However, it was one of our top-selling gift books of the year. So whether the kids loved it. So this is everything from space to the cosmos to Earth to climate change. It's just astonishing. It's absolutely beautiful, absolutely wonderful. Any adult would know the Bill Bryson book, but it's been totally redone with Bill Bryson for younger people to understand the world we live in, which is obviously a key thing. So absolutely gorgeous book, and cannot recommend it. So the kind of gifts market is really, really strong, and there's millions of others, but these will be the two kind of standout ones.
Yeah, my 13-year-old's totally getting that. That's done. That's ticked off. That's fantastic. Okay, this is the kind of the final stop on our route today, which is above middle grade. We get into YA. Where are we going, Sarah? What have you got? What are you recommending this year?
Well, I picked out 2 very different books. The first one is The Boldness of Betty. Now, this is by Anna Carey, and it could be read by a good reader of, say, 11, 12. It's chunky, so it's going to keep them really busy over Christmas. It's about a young girl called Betty, who's a teenager, and she works in a cake shop in Dublin, and she goes on strike with some of her friends, and she gets caught up in the 1913 lockout. The historical detail is woven through really, really beautifully, so it never overwhelms the book. It is just really funny. Anna is one of our really great comic writers for children. It's a super book. It's about family, friendship, and the unions, which is really unusual. I really enjoyed it, and I think a reader who is interested in history and interested in friendship and family books would love it. It's a cracking read. The second one is a little bit different, and I saw someone in the comments there was looking for a book for a 15-year-old. I am a big fan of poetry, and this year in particular, I've been dipping in and out of poetry quite a lot, just for a little sustenance and just a little spiritual lift, I think. This book is called She Will Soar, and it's bright, brave poems of freedom by women. Her previous book was called She is Fierce. She's Anna Sampson, and she collects them together. And there's some terrific, terrific poems in there from all kinds of people. There's Emily Dickinson, who we know well, but there's all kinds of voices from all over the place. Maya Angelou. It's a really, really, Yvonne Boland is in there, our own dear Yvonne Boland, who we lost this year. But it's a brilliant book, really wide-ranging. And it's the kind of one that I think thoughtful teenagers would dip in and out of during the year. I use it with my writing clubs, and there's lots of teenagers in my writing clubs, and they really, really like this collection and the previous collection. So something a little different, a lovely gift book, beautiful looking book. She Will Soar, collected by Anna Sampson.
I'm not sure whether or not, I definitely wasn't expecting it, but when I started this whole series back in March, back when we thought this would all be over and done in 3 or 4 weeks' time, and I thought I'd do a few episodes of this and just to keep us occupied. Poetry is the one thing I wasn't expecting so many authors all the way through the series to recommend, and we've had it coming up all the time, and so many people talking about how it's been perfect for them when your brain potentially can't accommodate as an adult reader.
Can't take
something long. You can't take anything that involves you having to concentrate. With lots of poetry has been huge this year. It's a brilliant idea. Lorraine.
Hello. Okay, so the two that I've chosen, there's a little bit of a spiel to go with them. In that, the great thing about the teen age group, again, like everything we've talked about so far, is it's so wide-ranging in both age, obviously between 12 and 15 plus, but also content. We're getting into the real sort of nitty-gritty life. And not every teen is ready or just having the kind of day that they need, quite as big a smack of real world as some of these books are able to give. And so it's always worth talking to your bookseller or looking up your books before you go buying, just to make sure that you are getting a book that really does suit the child or the teen that you're buying for. There's a great website called commonsensemedia.org that you can put a lot of books into, and it gives you the content and stuff like that in it, just as a note. So going on from that, my first choice has to be The Queen of Coin and Whispers by Heather Corcoran, ex-bookseller, very good friend of basically everybody in the book industry in Ireland at large. This is her debut book. It is YA fantasy, and it's a brilliant introduction for a teen or even an adult who would like to get into fantasy without the really, really dense, hard-hitting. There's 20 different people with basically the same name, but with a slight variation, who all do different things, which I'm just really bad at. This is why I really like these books. And so this is about Leah and Zania. One is a newly crowned queen. The other is her new spy master. They all have different motives for why they're doing different things, and then they fall in love. It's fab. It's just one of those books that grabs you and drags you through, and it's amazing because it's fantasy, but it's got no magic. And so even if you're looking for just something that could be a historical novel in a completely different universe, it's just amazing. And then, so I would recommend that for coming into teen. There is obviously the relationship element of it, but it's not overt. There's nothing hugely explicit in it. On the other end of that, you've got Juno Dawson. I love everything Juno Dawson does. She's just incredible. This is her most recent one, Wonderland, but it is the third in a trilogy. Well, it's not a direct trilogy, but it's 3 books that are interconnected. The other 2, Clean and... Yeah, you caught me here. What's the other one?
Don't put me in the spot. Go away.
The other one is Clean and the other one. So basically they follow sort of socialites that are about 17, 18 in different parts of the world, mostly in the UK. It does deal with drugs, relationships, sex, all of the interesting stuff that teens really want to read a lot of the time. It has a beautiful thing on the back of it that says, not suitable for younger readers. This is a marketing ploy, don't fall for it. Not all explicit content have this warning, but all books that have this warning have explicit content. So it covers you if you're a parent, you know you're not getting something that they're not ready for. But if a teen is buying for themselves, they know this is what they want. Just for a warning. Brilliant series, anything she does. Meat Market, thank you whoever is in the chat.
Fantastic. There's always somebody who has the necessary information.
And I've read all of them. I just got Meat Market, Clean, Wonderland, they're all great.
And there's a TV series coming, hopefully.
Yes.
And okay, Dave, you're going to finish this up. What have you got?
Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. So anybody who likes actually Karen McManus, One of Us is Lying, who actually just sneaking in there. Cousins comes out next week, which is a new book of that series. And both of them actually deal with kind of what we call normal people who suddenly turn up in a world where, if people remember We Were Liars, where there's money, like huge amounts of money. And this one is about Avery, who basically, there's a billionaire who she doesn't even know, suddenly gives her like the inheritance to all his money, and she has to go stay with the family. And it gets a bit like Succession, because it's all the family members who their father or granduncle was basically always into riddles and stuff. So it was a bit National Treasure with Nicolas Cage meets We Were Liars. And it's absolutely fantastic, and a bit of Hunger Games thrown in as well. So it covers every base. You just know it's going to be a TV show at some point. But absolutely love this book, and it's one of those classic. One more chapter. One more chapter. And then the other one, just out today. Ran down the road to get this in O'Connell Street. And climbed over 4 barriers. This is Ready Player 2, which is kind of a giveaway to what it's a sequel to. This is, so about 10 years ago, started life as a science fiction, pop culture, 80s nerd book that people absolutely adored. And it was just so many, I suppose, Easter eggs became the thing. So it was absolutely amazing. And then Steven Spielberg made a movie about 4 or 5 years ago, whatever the hell it was. And basically, a whole new audience. So we found that the whole YA audience, which had grown exponentially in the last few years, bailed in as if it was a YA book. So even though it's technically science fiction, that's me sorted for tonight. There's no way, no one is knocking on my door, they can go away, because Ready Player 2, absolutely fantastic. It's set literally a few days after Ready Player 1, so it continues on. And the impression I'm getting, because I don't watch trailers, so I have no idea what the plot line is. All I know is that there's even more Easter eggs in this one than the first one. So it'd be like, oh my God, man, I remember that. But yeah, look at that thing of beauty. So Ready Player 2, Ernest Cline, anybody who's seen Ready Player 1, or should even just get the two of them again, because they're absolutely fantastic.
That face of astonishment was a face of astonishment. I had no sense that was coming out. I didn't even know that existed. I like to think I know some stuff. I don't. That's amazing. Fantastic. Is that it? Super. That's, I know it's, as soon as bookshops open up, fingers crossed, and then next week after, that's where I'm going. Are we done? Are we happy? Is that it? Have we made it through everybody's lists? I think we're great. We're good. What we're going to do is briefly, and I know we discussed this earlier. Sorry, Dave. Goodbye. Because I need to talk to our 2 other contributors about their books, and you're going to sit there, and I get that. Dave O'Callaghan, thank you so much. Cheers. Thanks a million. Goodbye. Dave's gone. Okay, and what I'm going to do is, Lorraine, stay where you are. Don't move. Go there. Because when I do that, I'll be able to do this. Sarah, I got to click. There we go. You have a book out. Tell us all about the one with the waggly tail.
Oh, the one with the waggly tail. Yes, it is a collection of nursery rhymes and songs and rhymes that I love, that from my childhood, and ones like the waggly tail, Daisy, Daisy, and one of my favorites to sing to my little ones, which was You Are My Sunshine, My Only Sunshine. Plus lots of Irish bits and pieces, a little bit of Yeats, even a tiny bit of Joyce in there, and Van Boland, all kinds of things. So kind of 4, I'd say, from birth up to about 6 or 7. And the illustrations are by the extraordinarily talented Steve McCarthy, who did an amazing job. So yes, very proud of that book. Very sweet little book.
Good to get the plug in. It's important when you're here. Let's do it. Let's get it in. That's my pleasure. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Rick. Always a pleasure.
Awesome. Love you. Thanks a million. And Lorraine, look, we're going to get you here as well, because look, let's go down, scroll to the end. I'm doing all this literally with, like I'm a TV producer. Hang on. Okay, yours is, and we've talked about this before. We've talked about this in the book club, and essentially it does kind of what we've been trying to talk about here today, which is Once Upon a Reader.
Yeah, it's basically all of the bits that I always carve out all of my recommendations with. So I started my career as a bookseller, and it was the most incredible years because it's the most interesting and varied job that you can have, especially being a children's bookseller. So what I wanted to do was write a book that's basically for anyone, which is actually quite helpful at the moment, who can't make it into an independent bookseller at the moment, who doesn't have someone on hand to help them guide their children through their reading journey from prenatal up until teen YA. It has a section at the back that deals with different topics, bereavement, sexuality, all sorts of interesting and varied things, and books that will help you get through those issues. So yeah, it's basically just me ranting for however many pages about books.
And if you're a member of the Ricochet Book Club as well, Lorraine has also done a post over the last few days, which is just full of, again, chock full of the most amazing suggestions as well. Lorraine, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks a million. This has been brilliant. Cheers. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
And that's it for this episode of Shelf Analysis. Before you go, just so you know, if you've never seen Shelf Analysis before, there's a ton of them stretching all the way back to March of this year. We talked to Neil Gaiman very recently as well. If your kids are into Owen Colfer's books, there's one with Owen Colfer. There's one with Dave Rudden as well. There's a whole bunch of them that stretch all the way back to the beginning of the year, and you'll find all those on the YouTube channel. Just look up Shelf Analysis on YouTube and you'll find it there. Briefly, before I go, for the insanity in my life, I have decided, firstly, that I'm going to run a festival. So the Ricochet Book Club Christmas Festival is happening the 14th, 15th, 16th, and 17th of December. There are 4 events on 4 nights, all at 8 o'clock here in the Ricochet Book Club and on the YouTube channel as well. There will be a poetry event. There's a Books of 2020 panel. There's going to be a book quiz and then a party on the very last night. I have gotten everybody I have asked for this. I asked all the people I wanted for these events and they all said yes. That's the 14th, 15th, 16th, and 17th of December. That's the Book Club Christmas Festival. Thank you to our sponsors at Black Knight, who are the ones that allow me to essentially to pay everybody, which I hear is helpful these days. It's the way to go. Tomorrow night, let me go here. Normally, we would not have one for you tomorrow night, but of course, we do have one for you tomorrow night. Tomorrow night's Shelf Analysis is a special one as well, particularly for kids like the books of Frank Cotterill-Boyce. Frank was on the book show with me a little bit earlier this year. Yes, he's a screenwriter as well, but he's also an incredibly well-known children's writer these days too. Note the time, because, of course, the Unpost Irish Book Awards are happening live tomorrow night at 7:30. We've moved Shelf Analysis all the way back so that you and I will get to watch the Book Awards as well. So look, treat it as your warm-up. Tomorrow night here on Shelf Analysis, I'm going to be talking to Frank Cotterill-Boyce, and that's tomorrow evening at 6:30 here. Other than that, this has been brilliant, and I hope this has been helpful and useful for you, because that was the idea. If you're just coming in, you're just catching the end of it, you will be able to rewatch this on the YouTube channel as well. Again, just look up Shelf Analysis on YouTube. You'll find it there, or of course in the Ricochet Book Club, or all of them end up on RTE Culture as well. It's been lovely. Thanks a million. Enjoy the rest of your day. Good luck.